Okay, so let's build here something that looks like this. We had already built a little bit of the back end that returned a list of users that they're right here, Alice, Bob, and we have a query here that can return those users. Right. So let's see what we can do on the front end to consume some of this content. So to do that, we're going to do all our work under the web app under here. And let's see what we already had. We had already created a user admin template under here. So let's see if we can navigate there. So let's see. It's under where? It's under admin. So admin. Apparently that's not it. Is this running? Maybe not. Let's run this. There we go. Okay, so we had already started with this last week, and so this is static right now, and perhaps we can retrieve some of the data of the users on the back end and render this dynamically. Okay. So let's focus on trying to access the data first, right? So first let's grab a hold of what we're suggesting here. We're suggesting to declare in a file called userservice.client, encapsulate all the data access in there. Okay, so let's do that. Let's grab the implementation that we are suggesting here, which is somewhere in here. Let's see. There we go. And we're going to put it under the services directory. So in here, let's create services. And under the services directory on the client side, we're going to put everything that has to do with talking to the server, right? We need to retrieve users. We might need to retrieve courses that faculty have created. We might need to retrieve all the sections that the students are enrolled in. So any data access to the server is going to be implemented under this directory, services. Okay, and under services, we're going to have one service dedicated to each type of data type. Right, one service for dealing with users, one service dealing with modules, one service dealing with courses. Right, typically for every table is stored in the database, we'll have a particular dedicated service. Yes? Okay. So in the service, we already have a sample of what this might look like. Let's create a file in here, and we'll say new file userserviceclient.js, and in here we'll have this function in there. There we go. Okay, so this is a plain old JavaScript class. There's nothing spectacular about it. We're going to need to instantiate it, and it's going to add the following functions that are declared down here as functions that are going to be talking to a middle tier, right? So we'll see in a minute how that is done, right? We're going to load this JavaScript in here. We're going to load it in the script. Over here we can say script, and in our user admin template, and the script is located somewhere above us. Let's see. This template is way down here, right, and down here. So it's going to have to navigate up one, right, and then down to services. So down to services, and then down to user.service.client.js. Okay. All right, so let's see if it loads it. Let's grab this and reload, and we can take a look at the inspect. And in this inspect, one of the okay, so it's giving us some errors. Let's see what it's complaining about. Looks like a user service client is an invalid or unexpected token. Let's see, what is it complaining about? Maybe these extra tokens here are weird, so let's remove that. Oops. Let's try it again. Okay, so it's not complaining about that. Notice that one of the things that we can take a look at here, if you go to sources, we can see all the files that have been loaded, and indeed notice that the services user service client was indeed loaded, and we can see it right here. See that? So that file, the browser knows about that file, was able to download it, and has been declared it locally internally. Very good. So another thing that we might want in here is the other content that we need. So we're certainly going to need the jQuery library. We can download it as well. I believe this is it. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to make it available right here. Stack, Bootstrap, services, link. So I'll just load it and make it available right there. Okay, so I'm going to load the page again and verify that the library did load. And there's jQuery. So jQuery is being loaded, right? Notice that it's a minified version of the library, meaning that it has been compressed to minimize the size of the file. Great, so it's loaded. We can just verify that it was loaded by just using a script here and saying we can say $ function. We can say so this $ was declared by loading the jQuery library, right? So hopefully it's there already, and we can say alert and say hello from jQuery. Can't type. So if we load this again, notice that it says hello from jQuery. So indeed, we know jQuery has been loaded, right? We're ready to go there. Okay, but really we don't want that, right? So what we do want instead is declaring a library where we can have our controller for this, right? So we're going to create a controller here that has a particular name, and what is that we called it? Template. I'm just going to copy this. So let's create under admin. We'll create here a new JavaScript file, and we'll call it admin. I think we call it component. There we go. .js. And we're going to have to load that also in the HTML that we just declared earlier, right? So we're going to say source, and it's going to be the file that is local to us. So it's going to be user service, user admin component, so component JavaScript. Okay, and we go there. It's empty right now, and in here we're going to use the best practice of declaring this inside of a module. So this is an if statement. So this is a function, and in this function we're going to again make sure that we have jQuery loaded. Function, we can say console log hello from jQuery. So if we load this, we refresh and we look at the console, it says hello from jQuery. So we know jQuery has been loaded and we can write to the console. Excellent. All right, so what do we want to do inside of this jQuery? So we have user admin component. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Where is it implemented? Oh, here we go. Okay, so there's the beginnings of what this component is going to do. It's going to declare each one of the fields that we need to go fetch. All right, so I'm going to put it in here. All right, let's go over this a bit. I'm going to remove these weird characters. There we go. And so it's first going to declare some variables that we're going to need locally, right? So that these are going to refer to the input fields in the DOM, right? So this is going to be the input field for the username, an input field for the password, all these input fields, right? Each one of these input fields: username, password, first name, last name, and so on and so forth. Make sense? Right? We're gonna need to grab them, and the IDs I don't remember what they are, so we can do an inspect. We can look at the elements, and looks like we never actually gave it an ID. Right? We never actually gave it an ID. That's fine. I'm going to follow the naming convention that if I call the local variable username field, I'm going to use the same name for that field here. So here's my input field, and I'm going to give it an ID of that same name without the $sign. Yes? All right, so I can keep it straight in my head. Right, that this field with this ID maps to that variable over there and on the other side. All right, so I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do just a couple. That's cute. Let's grab maybe the first name too. Let's grab the first name. Where's first name? There it is, first name. So I'm going to say ID. And there it is without the $sign. Okay. Plus what else? Let's see. The client. I don't need this service now. We're definitely gonna need these buttons, right? So we're gonna say. So here we have remove. For instance, the remove button is gonna map to these buttons at the end, right? This delete over here, right? So this is gonna be ID. Remove button, right? So I'm not going to do all of them. And what else do I need? Let's see. We probably need the first one to be a template, right? This is going to be our template. So I'm going to give it a class as being the template. And I think the naming convention that we had in the assignment was, what is it? Webdev-template or something like that. So webdev-template. Okay, so we know we can grab that and then copy it and paste it multiple times. Yes? And I'm going to remove this one over here because we're going to generate that dynamically. I'm going to be able to grab this. Okay, what else? Let's see. Let's see if we can copy this. Let's see what it looks like right now. Notice that we only have Alice. Let's see if we can clone it. So for instance, in here, in main. Notice that we have $main, right? So this is, again, what happens here is that once the DOM has loaded, right, it'll invoke whatever function you tell it here. In this case, our main. So this is the perfect place to set everything up, right? We know the DOM has loaded, we're ready to go, okay? Regardless of where this file actually lives. So in here, we can grab the username because we know the DOM has already loaded. So let's grab that. We can say $grab, I think it's an ID, right? So it's a hash for the ID, and then username field without the $sign. So we have that. We can grab the, what else did we add? I think we grabbed the first name field, I don't remember, without the $sign. There we go. And right now that we have what values? Notice that they're empty. See that? They're empty. We can populate them. We can populate. We can say user field. We can say set their value to. Let's see. It's empty right now, so we're going to say Alice, for instance. So notice that we weren't able. What? Did it console? Is not defined. Admin. Oh, wait a minute. We have a problem here. User admin not being loaded. Admin new, admin user service client. Oh, what do we call that? We are loading that from here. Yes, this user service admin, user service client. There it is, and it's admin user service. We called it right, isn't it? That's correct. Oh, we probably loaded them in the wrong order. Yeah, here's our component, but when the time we're loading the component, it hasn't yet loaded the user service client, right? So we need to load it in the right order. So let's move this before this, right? So the dependencies are correct. Let's try it again. Okay, notice that it doesn't complain anymore, so it was able to load it. And notice that we were able to dynamically set the value of that input field, right, using the value. Very good. How about being able to clone something? Well, we can grab the templates. Let's see. Where's the templates? The template is right here. It's called webdev, and we want to add it to what? We want to add it to that's the head. We want to add it to the body of the table. So let's add a body here. T-body. So we're going to grab the template and we're going to add it to here. Let's do that. So here, let's grab the template. There's user row templates. So it's going to be, I think I called it, it was a class, right? And we called it webdev -template, I believe. Right, so this is using class CSS basically. It's using CSS rules, right, to refer to pieces in the document, right, whether they're IDs or classes and whatnot. So we have that. Let's try it. Let's see what we could do. We could hide it. We could hide it. So here it is. If we refresh and notice that it's gone, I'm hiding it. So yes, I can manipulate it. I can manipulate it. That's good. We can clone it. So this will make an in-memory copy of that DOM node, and it's all its descendant, all its content. It'll make a copy, and then I can assign it to here, var clone. But once I have it, what do I do with it? Basically, what I want to do is add it to the body of the table, right? So we need to grab a hold of the table body, right? So let's grab the T body, which is let's see, it's this one right here. We can just grab it either by giving it a class or by knowing the name of the elements, right? So we can just grab the body. We can say $T body. So that allows me to grab the element by name. Or if I know if it has a class, I can grab it by class. If it has an ID, I can grab it by ID. But I have the name. There we go. So we have it. So we can now append to it. We can say T body. Right? I can append. Right? And append. And, there's tons of functions in jQuery for being able to append, prepend, right? Make them siblings, make them all sorts of manipulation of the DOM. And we can add the clone. We can add the clone right here. So if we render, notice that now we have an additional copy of what we just cloned there. So ideally what we like to be able to do is go fetch all these users from the remote server. Once we have the JSON here as an array of users, we could just clone this over and over in a loop, right? And then just append to the T body as many times as we want. Make sense? So let's try that. Let's try and go fetch some data from the server. We can clone any times we want. We can just keep cloning, right? Nope. Wait a minute. What? Are we appending? Clone. Oh, I think we need to clone every single time. You can't just have just the same clone over and over. Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll do this in a loop, cloning as many times as we want, and then appending. All right. So let's see how we can go fetch some data from the client. So in this function, in the admin user function, we're going to use the user service to go fetch some data from this URL. Notice that this URL is the one that we've been using, right? If it's still mapped there, I believe. Yeah, still running. Right, so we have some data. We just need to go fetch it. Okay, so let's do that. What we're going to do is that we created an instance of this, and we want to call find all users. Find all users. Now, notice that all these functions take as an argument a callback. Right? So this is an older style of programming where all these calls, all these invocations, all this communication between the client and the server, all this communication is asynchronous, right? Meaning that when I'm accessing a remote server, right? Usually, I don't want to wait around for the server to respond to me, since that might take a couple milliseconds or even seconds, or maybe not come back at all, right? So usually, the communication between two remote processes, the best way is to do it asynchronously, right? Meaning, I'll send something, a request, right? I'll keep working and doing my business and not wait for it. Instead, I'll receive a callback at some point in the future when the response comes back from the server. Yes? Especially in JavaScript, where in the browser there's only one of these threads going around, or there's only one JavaScript thread, and I don't want to jeopardize this one thread just waiting on the server to come back. I'm busy. I need to do other things. I need to animate cats. I need to animate movies. I need to show advertising and whatnot, right? So I can't just wait for the server to come back, right? So all this needs to be asynchronous. So there's two styles of doing this, right? Either I send the request and I register a callback. This is the style. You pass me a callback, and when the response comes back, I will call you the callback and I'll pass you the data that comes back from the server. Or there's a more modern mechanism called promises. Right, called promises, which is what we're going to be using. So I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to use that old style. We're going to use the new style, and I'll show you in a minute. Okay, what we're going to do? We want to do this, right? This, what we just did here, I want to do this programmatically. I want to be able to do it programmatically. How do we do that? So what we're going to do is, from here in this function in the JavaScript, we're going to use a function called fetch. Okay, fetch allows me to programmatically generate a get, a post, a put, a delete. It allows me to programmatically generate these HTTP requests. Okay, you just need to give me a URL where you want me to send this request. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a fetch. The default request is a get. Right? If it's other than a get, I need to do some more things. Right? But if it's only a get, I just need to provide you with the URL. So this.url. Okay, let's see what that does. So if we refresh here, we go back here, and we still are looking. Let's look at the network. The network shows us all the traffic that happens between the browser and the server, right? It's fetching a whole bunch of things, right? It's fetching jQuery, right? So it's fetching the HTML template. It's fetching jQuery. It's fetching Bootstrap, right? It's fetching the JavaScript client. It's fetching all these things, right? Well, so what we're going to do is that we want to call that function. We want to call that function so that the fetch executes, right? So let's do that. Here in the main, we're going to use a user service. Right, user service dot find all users. We want to call that function. See what happens. Okay, notice that there's an extra request here that wasn't there before. Right? Notice the next to last there. See that? The user. If we click on that, notice that it's a fetch. See that it's a fetch, and we click on that. Look at that. That's the data. That's the data that the server has that we were looking doing it manually. We can go and fetch it, and we have it. Now it's in the browser. We just need to know what to do with it, right? But it made it to the browser. We need to know how to consume it. Okay? So one of the things that we would be tempted to do is to do the following. We could say var users like this, and then have the find all users. In the find all users, we would be tempted to do the following: return this, right? This would be the intuitive thing to do. Looks like the fetch went to fetch these users as an array. They came back, and I wanted to return. And that's the content that came back. Right? Then I want to assign it to, here, and then I want to iterate over that. Right? I want to iterate over it. Right? Unfortunately, if we do a console, right, we do a console and display it, notice that it's not actually the array. It's not actually the array. Right? Instead, it's a promise. It's a promise. Right? It's a novel concept of how to deal with asynchronous communication between two environments. Right? Instead of using the old style of using callbacks, right? This one uses what are called promises. So promises it has a slightly different syntax. So really what this is it's a promise, right? It's a promise. And what promises allow you to do is do the following. So promise allows you to say, register a function with me. At some point in the future, I will let you know when the promise results. I promise to call you in a minute, right? And you just give me a phone number to call you when it's all done, right? So that's what we're going to do. To register that callback, we use the then function. Right, we use the then function and then provide a function here where we can receive the data that's going to call us back. You know, don't call us, we'll call you. Right? Just give me somewhere to call you, and this is the function. So this function is where the actual data comes back. So data, and then we can do a console.log data. Okay, so now if we do we see that we actually get the response, and the body contains a stream that is in JSON format. We need to parse that. And so we can say .json. Oh, I think we need to wrap it in a. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, it's got two arrays. Actually, no. Let's do it. Let's do it like this. It's cleaner if the unwrapping of that promise is done in here. So this is dot then function. This is the response, right? And then this returns the response parsed as a JSON object from the body of the HTTP request. Then we can just spit out the data. Let's do that. There they are. The two arrays, the actual arrays, are now in our full control of our jQuery program to do whatever we want with it, right? What do we want to do? We want to iterate over them, right? Clone and append, clone and append, clone and append for every instance of these, right? So let's clean our code up a little bit. Notice that we have here a render users, right? So we're going to use this as our callback. Instead of this dummy function here, right, as receiving our data, we're going to use these render users, and we're going to call that function, right? And it's going to receive the data is the array of users. That's the array of users, right? So we can do the console here. We can say console log users. All right, so let's do that. Let's re-render that. We still are getting our two, right, in that render users. Yes. Let's clean that up this a bit. Instead, a more common syntax here, because things can be the style in JavaScript is to concatenate or string together certain functions. A prettier way to write this, right, is just to concatenate these two, like that. Right, or user service that find, and then the then. Right, so this has the two array in the two elements in the array. Make sense? All right. So now what do we do? Now we need to iterate over these, right? So we can say, you know, for we can say for u var user var u0 u less than users dot length user plus plus. We can use a map, I guess, and then we can do console each one of the users, right? We can say console user sub u. So we're printing each user one at a time. See that? So there they are. And what we could do is we have the body. We can clone right? So we need these two. We need these two pieces of code. We have the body. We have the user template. We can clone and append. Clone and append, right? So let's do that. Let's see if this works or if this blows up. There we go. So these two at the end are my clones. But notice that it has data from the original DOM. We need to override that, right? We need to modify all those things. So that means that in the DOM, as we are modifying, we need to change this username, right? So username. We need to change this first name. We need to change this last name. We need to change it, right? Because we cloned it, we want to override all those values. So we can do that. We can grab the clone. We can grab the clone. Here's the clone, and we can modify pieces of the clone. Right? We can say, hey, find me the element inside of the clone who has a class name of username, and I want to replace the HTML content, replace it with my users subu dot username. Right? So let's refresh that and notice that it's now Alice and Bob. Okay? I guess it doesn't help that the template also is Alice and and Alice. So let me change that a little bit in the HTML. I'll just have this empty. How's that? There we go. So the first the template is empty, right? And I'm overriding it over here. Same thing with the other elements. So we can verify your first name with first name here. Right. So we have Alice and Bob all being read from the server and dynamically updating the client. Make sense? All right. So I'll push this, and you can use this for your own assignment.